Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I am Barry P. Cook, and we're going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. It's season 2, episode 4, entitled Fair Skin, Blue Eyes. So we have a new villain, drug pusher entity in this episode, and I assume, we'll still have them through the season. They are being introduced as a big bad, it seems to me. The A plot this week, which also may end up being sort of a plot that we see referenced in future episodes of the season, I can't really tell at this point, was a plot involving the False Face Society from the DC Comics, the print comic, and how that entity in this episode has been basically stealing children off the street and forcing them to work in their society, their gang. Hopefully, I thought while watching this episode in the beginning that they would be pushing the Alice, situation and plot to the way back burner. That was my thought going in. More on that later. We see that Ryan is in fact suffering from PSD. She's driving the Batmobile down the road, chasing one of these drug dealer people, and she starts to have like flashbacks of being shot, and when she was driving her van trying to get away from Hush. So she is definitely suffering from PTSD from that event. So that's ongoing. Speaking of flashbacks, this episode was flashback heavy. And most of it was in service to this week's particular plot about how kids were being taken. But just before that plot kicked in, they did some basic flashbacks into Ryan's past, where it sort of sets up, how she grew up, which I guess was in foster care, where she met a girl who later became her girlfriend and who is now her ex. And I thought that was interesting because if I'm remembering season 1 correctly, we didn't get a lot of that. We got, some flashbacks to when, early in the season to when Kate was in the military academy, and when she was undergoing some of the training that she had. And we got flashbacks into stuff that happened to Alice, like the accident and when the mother died. But in terms of establishing, Kate's sort of personality and, her life story, I don't remember seeing a lot of flashbacks about that. And we've had quite a bit of that with Ryan in the first episode and now in this episode, where you're starting to, fill in the backstory of her life. And I think that will work well for this character. I don't think it would be something that would work on The Flash, for example, but it works on this show, and hopefully we'll see more of it. I think this character has a lot more depth than Kate's character did, and this can only lend itself to establishing more of that. This episode was pretty good, but it wasn't perfect. Like, they had some weird stuff that had me dubious. Like I said, the plot revolved around kids being kidnapped, and I guess at one point Ryan was one of those kids, and she was kidnapped by the same woman that's still kidnapping kids in the present, and it looks like a good 15 to 20 years have passed, and it turns out that the kid who was the focus of this episode was taken from the exact same spot and in the exact same way that Ryan had been taken all those years before. It was outside a comic book shop, and I was thinking, yeah, I don't think 15, 20 years later, they would still be getting kids from this same spot. Certainly not if they had been doing it the whole time, because criminals just don't behave like that. That's what gets you caught. So I was a little dubious about that. And not only, that gave me pause, but unfortunately, my thought that Alice had been pushed to the far, far back burner after her adventures on the island with Serafina, or whatever her name is. They brought her out, and they're still dealing with her and her whole thing, how she has to do this favor for that particular woman. And apparently find some guy and kill him, a guy that she's met before on the island, which we also see in a flashback. But I was hoping they had left this plot out because it's part of the whole narrative where we got to get Kate back, we got to get Kate back, and we know it's not happening. So it's just annoying, and that's on top of the fact that the whole Alice plot didn't work for me in season one. I don't know. It's early. Maybe it'll work better in this season. Maybe her motivations make more sense. In this season, we'll have to see. I think I've said this before. It's not a reflection on the actress that plays the part. She's great, and I think they've written a decent character. It's just the business that they give her to do, the story that they give her to carry out has been awful. At least in season one. So I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes. But the character's funny, and the character is intriguing, and the actress does a great job. So I don't know. Interestingly, I didn't know this till last night, but this actress rather, played another character in the DC verse a long time ago. She played Dinah Lance, the Black Canary, in Birds of Prey, which was a short-lived one-season show a bunch of years ago that I really liked. It focused on the Birds of Prey from the comic, with Huntress, Black Canary, and the Oracle, Barbara Gordon. And she was pretty good in that. But yeah, so she's been in the DC verse before. I thought that was kind of interesting. This show, gets complaints, at least during the first season, about how it's like very woke or SJW, and they started to talk about it for this season as well. And there's been some of that, and it sort of came back in this episode because there's a line where Ryan's talking about how she sort of ended up breaking out of captivity herself with the help of the girl who was her friend at the time and who is now her ex-girlfriend, as opposed to having been found. And she, had thought she was going to be found, especially on a particular day when some people turned up to the house she was being held in looking for a missing girl, but it turned out to be a different girl who she, notes was fair-skinned and had blue eyes. And she just comes right out and says, because when little white girls go missing, everybody jumps off the couch to go find her. I didn't think they needed to put that in. I don't think there's any reason for it to be in this particular show. That's more a line you would hear and that we have heard on police procedurals, where there's a Black child missing and, the parents or whatever will, of course, be upset and may think that not enough effort is going into the search for their kid. And they'll come out and say, oh, if she was white, you guys would be all over this. And they have those lines in those shows because that's a sentiment that exists in real life among, non-white people when their kids go missing. I don't know how true it is that the same effort doesn't get put into finding, children of color, but certainly it's not the first time we're hearing this sentiment, that same effort doesn't go into finding kids of color. It's just that line belongs more in a police procedural that's dealing more with real life than this show is dealing with. I mean, it's got real life, kind of events happening in it. Kids do get taken, but I didn't think that line needed to be there. It's not supposed to be. I don't know. I just didn't think the line belonged there, and that they're only going to get flack for putting that in there. People are going to say, it's woke or whatever. I think they could have left it out, but of course the title kind of says it, so I don't know. Because it wasn't connected to the plot. It wasn't a story about how white kids get looked for and people of color's kids don't. It was just sort of an errant line that didn't need to be in there for the plot. I don't know. I just noticed that it was there because people talk about how the show is woke. But anyway, the missing kids, is the plot, as I've been saying. And of course, Ryan is looking for this one particular missing child, I guess one of the latest children, to go missing. And I thought they kind of figured out who had done it a little too quickly. Like, it's not too quickly if you figure that Ryan kind of knew who it was because it had happened to her, which is a little too coincidental by itself. But then on top of that, since she didn't really know where that house was as a kid, they had to like figure out where it was, and I thought they figured it out all too quickly. Um, but that's TV for you. Another thing too is about the house and finding it is that when she does get help breaking out, in the past from her friend, it's because the friend, quote unquote, allowed herself to get caught so that she'd go to the same house and be able to help. Which really, what did you do? Just like put a sign, please kidnap me? Like she just went to the. I went to the place where they take the kids from, that everybody knows about. Just didn't make a lot of sense. It was sort of convenient to the plot. But then Ryan finds the house as an adult, and what happens? She gets taken again by the woman and her people. She has to fight her way out. I don't know. Whatever. But she ends up finding this missing kid whose name was Kevin. And I'm going to say it again. I do like this character. She's tough. She's witty. She has crazy heart. The show I find now has heart, where it didn't before. Leslie is great in the role, Javicia Leslie. And of course she found the kid. There's no way they were going to not find the kid. But the final scene where she finds the kid and sort of talks the kid down and rescues the kid was great, and especially because then she has an exchange with Kate's dad because he says, "How did you find him?" And she says, "I looked," which I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say it was great because it goes back to that whole "you would have found him sooner if he was white" thing. But it does show the character has heart. It does show that the writers are, I don't know, at least trying to give the character good lines. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I generally liked the scene, and I liked that the fact that she talked with Kate's dad, because Kate's dad doesn't know that doesn't know who Batwoman is now, but he knows it's not Kate, and the idea that he and Batwoman could have a working relationship as opposed to before, when he was trying to capture Batwoman because she was a vigilante. I think it would be better if they have a working relationship as opposed to that. So hopefully this was laying a seed for that to occur. I thought the standalone, A plot in this episode was good. It makes the Alice stuff, tolerable. I didn't think it was overwrought. It's a one and done. It's not something that's going to be dragged out. In a way that wouldn't work. I think they've set up some other things that are going to be, gone back to over the course of the season with the drug pusher angle and the snake bite people. Although Alice does seem a little bit better this season, like I was saying earlier, maybe the new sort of focus they've given that character is going to work better than what she was focused on before. I don't know. We'll have to see. I am concerned that there may be one too many plots or two too many plots going at the same time. So we'll have to see how they manage that. Because so far, we've got the Kate, Alice, and Sapphira plot, that whole thing. We've got the plot that they introduced with Jack Napier, which, seems to be something they're going to pursue now. They've got the whole thing with the snake bite, the drug that they're going to be pursuing, I think, quite obviously. And they've also got the kryptonite poisoning situation, and Ryan's PTSD. So they've got a lot of irons in the fire. And I think if this show is going to go bad, like season one did, it's going to be because they lose focus and they try to go in too many different directions. So we'll have to see, if some of these plots maybe get wrapped up in short order and only some of them continue on through the whole season. We'll have to see, but I'm still liking this season much more than last season. I'll say it again, Javicia Leslie, I think, is great in the part. I think the Ryan Wilder character is great. And I like her relationship with Mary a whole lot. I think um, I didn't think much of Mary last season. She was sort of one dimensional, but I think they're developing her as well. I think the character is better this season. So I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering last season. I hope I'm not giving it short shrift. I just know that every week I put it on to just kind of watch it because it was there. But I actually look forward to watching Batwoman now, and I come away from the episodes feeling like I watched something decent. So we'll have to see how it continues. I'm hearing that the ratings for last night were not great. I think that's unfortunate. I'm hoping that assuming the rest of the season goes well in terms of you know the good things they're doing now, if they continue them, it would be sad if the ratings killed it and it didn't get the third season, even though they've already renewed it. But that's it. That's all I have to say about Batwoman for this week. I'll be back with a review of the next episode. I'll also be back with my review of WandaVision later in the week. But until then, I say once again, my friends, peace and long life.